Hey guys, it's Allie. Now, I'm sure you've noticed from the title of this video that this is not Time Travel Tuesday. Time Travel Tuesday will come out this week. I'm just going to release it a little bit later. And the reason for that is that this particular Tuesday, this week, happens to be my channel's 1-year anniversary. So I wanted to make a special video just for that, just to celebrate this milestone with you guys. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently. There are a few things that I want to do in this video. The first thing is a little segment where I answer some of the questions I've received from you guys over the past year. Just questions that I've heard a lot of in comments of the videos, Facebook, Twitter, etc. That I'd like to answer for you guys. Next, I have a few screen captures taken from scenes from episode 2 of Departure that I want to share with you all. And for any of you non-believers who think it's never coming out, maybe this will change your mind. After that, I want to share with you guys a special video. Now, the first video that I ever released on this channel is actually not my first ASMR video ever. A few weeks or possibly months, I can't really remember, but a while before I uploaded that first video and created my channel, I made another video. And this one was intended for my boyfriend, who had just introduced me to the ASMR community, and I just wanted to see if I could do it, if I could make a video that would give him tingles. So I sat down in my closet in my bedroom with a very old laptop with built-in webcam and a built-in mic, and I made an ASMR video just for him. So I'm gonna share that with you guys. It's sort of a vintage ASMR video. And I thought that would be kind of neat to share. As I'm sure you have noticed by now, I am in a whole new space again. That's because my move has finally occurred and I'm in the new place, finally. And I'm really looking forward to giving you guys a little video tour of my shooting space once it's all set up how I like it, because I am still getting unpacked. So thank you for bearing with me through that. I'm very happy to finally be in my new home. So, before I get to the questions portion of this video, I want to thank you guys for the past year of my life. A year ago today, I just on a whim sat down on my bed and made an introductory ASMR video and posted it to YouTube. And since then, my whole life has kind of changed in some really amazing ways. I remember my first subscriber was a channel called Native Visions. It's run by, I think he calls himself Unhost, and it's actually a gaming channel, and I'll link to it in the description. So he was my first subscriber, and the first comment I ever received on a video was from Just a Whispering Guy. Many of you know him as Robert. He has an incredible ASMR channel I love. And I'll link to that as well, just in case you haven't checked them out yet. So, just a little shout out to you guys. Thank you for being my first subscriber and commenter. Doing this channel has given me just so much. Before this channel, I never really had a truly established hobby, if that makes sense. I've had hobbies in my life, but nothing that I really fell in love with and committed myself to as much as I have this channel. And that has given my life a different kind of sense of routine and purpose that I guess in some ways it was kind of missing. And that's a pretty beautiful thing, actually. This channel has also been a really incredible creative outlet for me, unlike any that I've ever really had in my life before. I've always sort of had this kind of like pent up creative energy, I guess, that I have never found the perfect way to express until I started making these videos. And I'm just so grateful that I have been able to find a way to express that and let it out into the world, while also being able to benefit other people and help others relax and find peace. And for all of that, I really have to thank you guys. The way I see this channel is that, yes, it's my channel, but it's just 50% what I do. It's 50% me and 50% you. And what I mean by that is that if I imagine doing these videos and having this channel without all of your feedback, your comments, and your messages, if I imagine doing this without hearing from you, it would be really different, and it wouldn't be nearly as wonderful. That feedback that you guys provide to me is so important to me. I mean, it's so important that I incorporated it into a weekly video. The Time Travel Tuesday video is based almost entirely on your votes, and that's incredible because so many people choose to use YouTube passively, and that's okay. That's just one way to use YouTube. But all of you who are interacting with me and commenting every video and taking part in surveys and contests, that's amazing, because you don't have to do any of that. So you deserve a huge thank you for that, all of you. And it's because of that, it's because of you guys that I have been able to grow and learn. I learn something new from every video that I release. So thank you so much to all of you. And I also want to, I didn't mention this before, I want to thank the ASMR Reddit community too. Because I remember when I first started, my first roleplay that I ever did was a cranial nerve exam. And my boyfriend posted it to the ASMR subreddit. and the response was it was very positive. I got a really good reception for that video on Reddit, and that's continued ever since. And I owe a big thank you to all of you Redditors, so thank you Redditors also. So now let's move on to the question answer segment of the video. So I get asked lots of questions about my life and myself, and I have tried to answer a lot of them just by responding to comments and making mentions in videos here and there. But now I want to just do one big altogether session where I answer all those questions that I see repeated over and over again. And these questions are a combo of questions from just comments on YouTube, on the videos, and things that people have asked me recently on Facebook and on Twitter. So I'm going to answer your questions now. One of the questions that I'm asked most frequently, and that I don't even know if I've ever answered, but there has been wide debate about on YouTube, especially recently, is my age. And just to end the argument, I'll tell you, I'm 23. I was born in July of 1990. So anytime that you hear me say that I'm a 90s kid or I was born in the 90s, yeah, I was born in 1990. So because was born in July, or the part of July that I was born in, that makes me a Cancer. So if you're into astrology or you put any stock in that really whatsoever, I actually do have a lot of the characteristics of a typical Cancer sign. They're supposed to be very emotional people and very attached to their loved ones and their home, and that's definitely me to a T. So yeah, 23. So now the great debate can come to a close. Oh, a lot of people are surprised to find, or don't even know, that I have a little boy. And he is about 2.5. So I had him when I was 20, which is kind of young, but I was ready for it. His name is Jack, and he's he's amazing. He's just, in my opinion, the cutest, most precious human to walk the planet. He loves Elmo, and he loves chocolate milk. He's a little bit too young to be able to say the word chocolate. So when he wants chocolate milk, he asks for puppet milk. And when we moved into this new apartment, there's all this open space in the living room right now because we don't have any furniture in there at the moment. And he started running back and forth across the room, yelling, "Puppet milk! Puppet milk!" It's really cute. Anyway, it's just a little silly anecdote. Yeah, I adore him. He's my world. One question that I have heard a few times about Jack is if I would ever consider bringing him into a video with me and introducing you guys to him. The answer to that question for the time being is no. And my reason for that is that because he's so young right now and he can't really express a preference, I don't want to make that decision for him, if that makes sense. Because putting videos out on YouTube and on the internet is pretty permanent. It's out there. So until he is old enough to express a preference one way or the other, I'm going to err on the side of caution and not do anything against his will. So, for now, you won't be meeting him, but maybe someday. Another question that I have, and I've had recently, is people asking me, I guess, about how I find motherhood, how I like it. And as I've said, he's just my world. Becoming a mother was probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me in my life, and I could talk about this for an hour. I could make a whole video about that, but I won't. That's all I really need to say. It's changed my life in the best way possible. Another question that people ask a lot, and some people have even requested a whole video on it, is my tattoos. I don't know that I could fit that, or not fit that, but I don't know that a video about my tattoos would be very long or interesting. But I'll tell you about them now. I have 3 different tattoos, 2 of which you have probably seen. The first tattoo I ever got, I don't actually know if you can physically see this. This is the first tattoo I got when I was 18. Like as soon as I turned 18. And it says Beverly K, which is my mother's first and middle name. And I lost my mother when I was 9 years old to cancer. And so as soon as I turned 18, I wanted to get a tattoo to sort of commemorate her. And this tattoo I have never regretted. I still love it to this day. And actually, it's about time for a touch-up, I think, on the color. The next tattoo I got, I won't show you. It's not really anywhere bad. I just don't want to have to get up and mess with it, honestly. But it's on my hip. I also don't want to show my hip on camera. It's on my left hip, and it is a really little Star of David. Because my heritage, I guess, on my dad's side is Jewish. And I don't practice Judaism myself, but it's a part of my heritage that I value and treasure. And it's kind of you might say it's a silly tattoo, because actually in the Jewish religion, if you have tattoos, I think that means that you cannot be buried in a Jewish cemetery. So that's kind of I don't know, it's kind of a silly tattoo in that way. But I got that one when I was about 19, I think, pretty soon after this one. Now my third tattoo, and my last one, which you guys have probably all seen. Try and turn it upside down. It's the number 13 with a little arrow going through it. There's nothing really significant about that to me. They were running a special at this tattoo place on the 13th of the month, where you could get a tattoo for really, really cheap. But it had to include the number 13, since it was the 13th. And kind of spur of the moment, I just got it, and it took about 5 minutes max to do. It was really quick, and that's it. I sort of got it at a time in my life when things were in transition, things were changing a lot, and I liked the idea that this little tattoo would be kind of a symbol of that time in my life, because I wanted to always remember it, because it's an important time. So that's it. Those are my tattoos. By far the most meaningful one is the one on my shoulder of my mom's name. So, next question. A lot of people have asked me how I managed to make the hover in my Time Travel Tuesday video about Back to the Future. If you haven't seen that one, the video opens with me holding a little hoverboard like Marty McFly's hoverboard, and then it sort of floats in midair. A lot of people have asked how I did that. It was pretty simple. I bought just a cheap little kid's skateboard from the store, and I took the wheels off of it and sort of decorated it in some kind of shiny tape, and I put some little foam discs on the bottom of it to make it kind of look like the hoverboard in the movie. And then I suspended it from bright green yarn that's basically the same color as a green screen. And what you can't see just out of frame in that video is my boyfriend standing on a chair right next to my bed, hovering over me, puppeteering the hoverboard like a marionette from the strings. And it took several takes to get that right. Several takes. But in post-production, after we finally got the shot, we just keyed out the green yarn on either side of me and filled it in with the actual background so that you couldn't see the strings, so that it looked like it was floating. And that's it. It's pretty basic, but I was really happy with how that one turned out. I thought it looked really cool. So there's that mystery solved. So the next few questions are from Facebook and Twitter, and I wrote them down in my handy notebook so that I wouldn't forget any. So these were recent questions that people sort of submitted. First question is from Courtney Sid. Courtney says, "You've had some very creative ideas." Thank you, Courtney. "What's the craziest idea you've had for a video?" A lot of you guys remember Salmon, the character Salmon, who appeared briefly in my modeling shoot roleplay as a makeup artist. Salmon was a character that replaced another character that I came up with. Originally, Salmon's character was, or the makeup artist in that video, was a man by the name of Paolo. And we shot it and everything. I dressed up like Paolo, had a ridiculous kind of French-sounding accent, I think. And yeah, I was in full drag. I really looked like a man. And it didn't work out. There were just some aspects to it that made it a little bit too difficult to shoot, and then the idea of Salmon was born, and I liked Salmon a lot better. So, yeah, that was probably the craziest I've ever done, because Paolo was pretty ridiculous. Okay. Next question is from Brian Langham. Brian asks, "What is your favorite movie?" Hands down, my favorite movie of all time is The Sound of Music with Julie Andrews. I just watched it over and over again as a child with my mom a lot. I can pretty much recite the entire film to you, and I can sing all the songs, which is a little embarrassing, but It really is my favorite movie, easily. The Sound of Music. The next question is from, I hope that I say this right. I think your name is Jojo Lindgren. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Jojo says, I'm curious about your herb garden. In a fairly recent Thrifty Thursday video, I planted some herbs in a little kit that I found at the thrift store. And I think I told you guys that I would update you on the progress of the herbs, which I haven't done because there is no progress to report. They didn't even sprout. I did everything right. I watered them just as I should, kept them in the sun, but nothing happened. Not a single sprout, so I kind of suspect that the seeds maybe were too old, possibly, or went bad, maybe just from being in storage or the thrift store for possibly years. So, unfortunately, nothing came of that. So, sorry to disappoint you. Okay. Next question is from Paul Miller. Paul asks, of all the Time Travel Tuesdays you have done so far, which one was the most interesting for you personally to research? Which, if any, made you say, oh, this is cool? That's a really good question. I think that the most interesting ones for me, there's two of them. Most interesting ones have been the Zelda Time Travel Tuesday. Because I didn't know anything about Zelda at all. And it was really fascinating to learn about Zelda. And my other favorite was Nirvana. Because I was not a Nirvana fan until I did this video. And now I actually think that I am a Nirvana fan from everything that I learned. Okay, the next question comes from Kate Monley. Kate asks, who's your favorite superhero and why? And do you like Benedict Cumberbatch? I have two favorite superheroes. As far as the hero himself versus the story, my favorite superhero is Batman. And my favorite superhero story is Superman. Batman is my favorite superhero because he doesn't have superpowers, really. He's just a human. And I guess I should say that Bruce Wayne is my favorite superhero because he's the one that I find the most admirable. His whole superhero persona is based on facing and managing fear, which I think is an incredibly human and relatable theme. And he doesn't have super strength or he can't fly or see through walls. He just harnesses his own fear and channels it into doing good, I guess, and fighting the fear, if that makes sense. I think that's really kind of beautiful, poignant theme. So I guess Bruce Wayne more than Batman. And the reason that Superman is my favorite superhero story is because, especially now that I've become a parent, I've realized how many themes and kind of overtones of parenthood exist in the Superman story. Kal-El had to be sort of given up by his parents, his real parents from Krypton. They sent him on to a better life and to help the inhabitants of Earth because they had to. And then, so that was a major sacrifice. And then he found new loving parents on Earth with the Kents. And they had to learn to parent this exceptional child who was a superhero, basically. And then, kind of spinning it around, Superman, or Clark Kent, had to become a sort of parent to the world, or to people of Metropolis, I guess. But the thing about parenting is that it can sometimes be a sort of thankless job, and Clark Kent had to keep his identity a secret as Superman. So he was constantly saving the world and doing good for the world without ever really getting any recognition for it. And that is a sacrifice that you make as a parent. And that's a sacrifice that Clark Kent willingly made for the human race. So I think that's kind of a beautiful intertwining of parenting stories. Anyway. Oh, and Benedict Cumberbatch, I haven't ever really seen him in anything, but at first glance, I actually don't find him super appealing. And he's kind of cute, but that's it. Okay, next question. Comes from, I hope I pronounced this right, Farah or Farah Noon? Noun, maybe? Sorry. But the question is, what Hogwarts house do you think you'd be sorted in? I'm a big Harry Potter fan, so it's a good question. I think I would be in Hufflepuff because I'm a particularly good finder. I'm just kidding. My personality, I feel like, has many elements of many different houses, and I don't know if I would fit into just one. I don't think anybody fits into just one. I think that we can all be brave and ambitious and industrious and clever. So, I can't really answer that question. I think I belong in all of the houses, if that makes sense. Next question comes from Robert Mexico, maybe? Mexico? I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Robert asks, have you ever considered becoming an actress? And actually lots of people ask me that, and I hadn't really, before I started my channel, I hadn't really done much acting. I took some theater classes in middle school and high school. I was in one play, and that was it. So, not a lot. Next question comes from Tina Genera, or Geneva? Sorry, can't read my own writing. Tina says, you seem like somebody who is well educated. Thank you, Tina. I wonder what you studied, what your interests are, etc. I only finished about a semester, or a year and a semester of college, so like 3 semesters. I don't have a college degree, I never finished, but when I was in college, I was an English major with emphasis in creative writing. I love literature and I love to write, and I'm really, really good at grammar, very good at grammar. I also attended cosmetology school for a while until my son was born, and actually almost finished that, but never went back after becoming a mom. So those are some of my educational experiences. Tori Chavez says, what is your favorite dessert? Chocolate. I love chocolate. I love all kinds of desserts. My favorite at the moment is the P.F. Chang's has a chocolate torte that you should try. It's flourless and it's got like a raspberry sauce going on. It's incredible. That's my favorite right now. Heather Feather asks, would you rather have hair made of ham or only be able to squawk like a seagull when you talked? This is an important question for everyone to consider. I think my answer would have to be hair made of ham, because I like to talk a lot, all the time. And I like for people to understand me. I like to be able to communicate, so I don't think I would be as effective a communicator if I could only squawk like a seagull. So I would rather have ham hair. Thank you, Heather, for asking me the big question. Okay, next one. I know that I'm not going to say your name right, but I'm going to try. No, I'm not even going to try. It's spelled Roosje. DeGraff. Rouge. The question is, what is your best childhood memory? My best childhood memory, I have many, but one of my favorites was my 9th birthday. I was at swimming practice. I was taking swimming lessons, and my stepfather came and picked me up and said we had to run an errand, and then we could go out for ice cream or something for my birthday. I was really looking forward to the ice cream. He said, but we have to stop at my friend's house and run an errand, pick something up first. And so we arrived at the house and walked around the back of the house into the backyard, and I was hearing the sounds of kids like laughing and playing, which was weird because I didn't think these people had any kids. So we walked around to the backyard, and all of a sudden all of my friends from school and my mom and family friends were there yelling surprise. And it was a surprise birthday party for my 9th birthday, and it was a pool party. And it was the last birthday that I spent with my mom before she died. She passed away 2 months after that, and it was a wonderful memory having her there and having all my friends there to surprise me. So that was a really good day. Okay, my next question comes from Danny or Danny Leone. Danny or Danny says, I love your nails. Thank you. What type of artificial are they, and what do you ask for when you get them done? Actually, you're correct. These are not my real nails, but I do not get them done by a manicurist. This is my cool little secret. As many of you probably have realized about me, I like to save money, and getting your nails done regularly can get expensive, so anytime I want long, pretty nails, I get the press-on kind. Actually, these are glue-on. And this brand is one brand. There's several brands of these. And I have to buy the petite kind because I have tiny little freakish fingers that are very small. And yeah, I just glue these on, and they last about a week, sometimes more. And this one, I think this box costs like $6, and it lasts a decent amount of time. So I actually rarely go to the nail salon to get my nails done. Maybe once or twice a year max, if that. So that's my secret. They're very inexpensive, and I actually like how they look because they're thin and kind of small, and they don't look really obnoxious. I don't know. So that's what I use. Okay, next question comes from Marisha Parker. And she says, what's an aspect of your personality that we never get to see in your ASMR videos? What I hope you don't see in my videos is that I actually am a fairly anxious person. I do deal with some anxiety. My brand of anxiety especially is almost bordering on a little bit of hypochondria. I worry about little health ailments all the time. any little change in my body makes me worried that I have some horrible disease. So yeah, again, I hope that never comes across in my videos. But that's something that I deal with regularly. Also, I have a little bit of a mouth on me. I try and keep it in check because it's not very ladylike, but I have a tendency to swear a little bit more than I should. I keep that under control when my son is around. I've gotten really good about not swearing around him because they're like sponges, they'll just soak it up. But yeah, I'm kind of anxious and I curse. I don't know if you wanted to know that. Okay. Alan Noble asks, where is your microphone? Right now, my microphone is right here. I'm pointing right at it. You can't see it, but it's pointing right at my mouth. And if I'm ever using my 3DO FreeSpace Pro, it's right here, right behind the camera, and the ears are on either side of, like, the lens, and just behind it. So, but this is the shotgun mic that I use that's pretty much always right here, or right here. Okay, Elliot Chambers asks, do you ever feel awkward doing one of your segments? I don't really anymore. I used to when I first started. I felt a little bit shy and nervous on camera, but it doesn't feel awkward to me anymore because it's just become part of my life and it feels actually pretty natural. I was at a friend's wedding not long ago, and there was, at the reception, there was a camera person somewhere in a back room taking videos of like well wishes for the bride and groom, and guests would come in and sit on a couch and talk to the camera, give a little message to the bride and groom. And I sat down when it was my turn and I accidentally started speaking in my ASMR voice, and as though I were doing one of these videos, and I had to start over and speak at a normal volume because I felt silly. So no, it doesn't really feel awkward anymore. For me, it feels pretty normal. Okay, Trevor Cardinal asks, what made you start doing ASMR and what gives you the best tingles? Well, I've already kind of told the story of what made me start doing it. My boyfriend loved ASMR videos and he got tingles, and I wanted to see if I could give him tingles, and I did. That was my first video, worked for him. And when he encouraged me and told me that I was really good at it, I thought I could try and start a YouTube channel. So I did. And my favorite triggers, the things that give me the best tingles, are inaudible whisper videos, which I love. I love those. And I'm not sure what you would call it, but the videos that include visual ASMR, where people are kind of doing this sort of thing with their hands. Softly Galoshes does really great visual ASMR for me, as well as That ASMR Chick. Those are some of my favorite sort of hand visual ASMR videos. So those are some of my main triggers. I also like really light, soft tapping that you can barely hear. Kind of like that. Okay. Did I skip any? No. Laszlo from Hungary on Twitter asks, have you thought that making YouTube videos would be a weekly practice for you? Have you done any filmmaking before? No, when I first started doing this, I never thought that I would be making videos every week, let alone 2 videos a week. I never thought it would become that big a part of my life, and it has, and I love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's amazing. And I didn't really have any filmmaking experience before this. The majority of my filmmaking experience was a movie making summer camp I took when I was like 13 or 14. That's it. Now, for the final question, the number one question that is asked across the board on my channel, on Facebook, on Twitter, everywhere. Where is Departure? Departure has been compared to Half-Life 3, to Dr. Dre's Detox, in that people don't know if they're ever gonna come out, if it's ever gonna happen. Now, I don't know the status of those projects. I don't know about Half-Life 3 or Detox. But I do know that Departure is coming. Despite how long it's taking, despite what it seems like it is coming. And I want to share with you all of the reasons and explanations as to why it's taken me so long to get it out. And I plan to. When Departure is out and it's finished and it's uploaded, I'm going to make a video. Because it's a video's worth of reasons. But I am going to make a video explaining what went into this project and why it has taken so long. But for now, I do have some very recent screen captures that are from the post-production editing process of episode 2 that I want to share with you. And I want to take a minute to apologize for any bumping around that you're hearing right now. My new neighbors above me are really noisy high school students, I think. And between the hours of like 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., I think it's pretty quiet here. But around this time of day, it's just like bowling balls upstairs. And it is the evening right now, so I'm sorry about that. Anyway, I want to share these screen captures with you because I'm really excited about them. Now, this is not the update video that contains the announcement for the release date of episode 2. That is coming, but this isn't it. I just really wanted to share these photos with you because it's really exciting to me. So here are 3 screen captures that I have for you today. Now, I can't say too much about them, but each picture that you see is from a separate scene in the video. Whereas Departure 1, or Episode 1, only had one scene, one continuous scene. Departure 2 has multiple scenes that all sort of fit into one consistent story. So even though these pictures all look very different, they all do tie in to the main story of the episode. This last one is my personal favorite. You might recognize this one from the little teaser that I put out 1 or 2 million years ago, where I showed just a teeny little clip of the scene in which you, the viewer, are just about to be put into sleep stasis for your departure to Gliese 581G. And so this is a screen cap from that scene, including the spacecraft that you are traveling in on your journey. I love this one. I'm very, very excited excited about it. So, hopefully, these photos can sort of put to rest the rumor that departure's never happening. It's never coming out. Hopefully now, no one can say that departure isn't coming, because it is. So, that is it from me for this 1-year anniversary video. Again, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys have made this past year so amazing and memorable and special in my life. And I couldn't be more grateful to you guys. I love you guys a lot. And yeah, I appreciate everything. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. And I'll be seeing you all again very soon for Time Travel Tuesday. So now, without any further ado, I want to show you my first ever ASMR video. So, please enjoy the video that follows. Bye, guys. Hi, my name is Allie, and today I'm going to be talking to you about something I'm very interested in, which is poetry. And I'll be talking to you today about a few different types of poems that I'm very interested in, and how they're written, their form and structure. And then I'll give some examples of the types of poems that I'm discussing. And while I'm talking about that, I also have this plate of kosher sea salt, and I have a little plastic knife that I'll be using to make some drawings and some doodles in the sea salt. And so I hope that you find this video interesting and informative, and most of all, I hope that you find it very relaxing. Okay, so the first type of poem that I want to talk to you about, and that I'm very interested in, is called the Sestina. And the Sestina is what is known as a complex fixed verse form, and it is a very complex type of poem to write. It's very technical and can be time consuming, and it's a challenge to write. So it is made up of 39 lines, and the 39 lines is within 6 stanzas, and all 6 stanzas are 6 lines each, except for the final stanza. Or no, I'm sorry. There are 6 stanzas of 6 lines, and then a 7th stanza that is 3 lines, sorry. It's not 6 lines, but it's 3 lines, and that's known as the envoy. It has that last stanza has a few different names, but I know it as the envoy. So, what is so tricky about the Sestina is that the words that end each line of the first stanza, each of those words is used as a line ending in each of the following stanzas. And the way that they appear in those stanzas is determined by a pattern, a rotating pattern. So the very last word of each six lines of the first stanza, each of those words is repeated in the poem at the end of every single line of the poem. And the sestina is a tricky poem to demonstrate without a pen and paper and without showing you the actual formula of the poem, because it's so complex and so technical that if you're like me, then you probably would have to see it written out in front of you to really grasp the poem, the structure of the poem. But what I'll do is I'll read you an example of one stanza of the sestina, and just pay attention to the last line, the last word of every line that I say. So this poem is by a poet named Elizabeth Bishop, and it goes: September rain falls on the house. In the failing light, the old grandmother sits in the kitchen with the child, beside the little marble stove, reading the jokes from the almanac, laughing and talking to hide her tears. So, the last word of every line were house, grandmother, child, stove, almanac, and tears. And in the next stanza of the poem, those words appear again at the end of the line, at the end of each of those 6 lines, but in a different order. And so that pattern continues throughout the entire poem until the envoy, the 3-line stanza at the very end. And I like the sestina because it's so technical and so challenging that to write a good sestina takes a lot of time and patience and most importantly a lot of skill. And I find them very challenging myself. So the next poem that I'll describe for you is called a cinquain. And cinquain is actually inspired by the Japanese haiku. And you've probably heard of the haiku. But if you haven't, I'll describe that to you. Basically, the haiku, it comes in lots of forms, but the most common form is it's a very short poem. A stanza is made up of 3 lines. And the first line of the stanza the first line of the stanza is 5 syllables long. The second line of the stanza is 7 syllables long. And the third line of the stanza, the final line, is 5 syllables again. Now again, there are different variations on the haiku, but that's the most common. And I'll give you an example of a haiku. This goes: an old silent pond, a frog jumps into the pond, splash, silence again. And as you'll notice, the first line was 5 syllables long. The second line was 7 syllables long. And the third line was again 5 syllables long. So, the cinquain is similar to the haiku because it deals with syllables like that, except the stanza is, instead of 3 lines, it is 5 lines. So, again, lots of variations on the cinquain, but I'll tell you about the American version, which was invented by a poet called Adelaide Crapsey, and her version is similar to the haiku, but it has 5 lines, and the first line of the stanza is 2 syllables, the second line is 4 syllables, the third line is 6 syllables, the fourth line is 8 syllables, and the fifth line is 2 syllables again. So it goes 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 2. And I have an example of a poem that was actually written by that poet, Adelaide Crapsey, and it goes, "Listen, with faint, dry sound, like steps of passing ghosts, the leaves, frost-crisped, break from the trees and fall." So that cinquain was written in the American form by the poet who invented it. The first line, "listen," is of course 2 syllables, and the second line, "with faint dry sound," that's 4 syllables. The third line says, "like steps of passing ghosts," and that's 6 syllables. The fourth line, "the leaves, frost-crisped, break from the trees and fall," that's the fourth and fifth line, 8 syllables and 2 syllables. I like that form of poem because it's so similar to the haiku, which is such a beautiful, simple form of poetry, which is so different from the sestina that I talked about a minute ago, which is so complex, and they can be very lengthy also. So the haiku and the cinquain are very different from that complex verse form, and I like that type of poetry as well. So the very last type of poem that I'm going to describe for you is, this one's really neat. It's called The Villanelle, and it's a little difficult to explain, but once you hear the example, it will make a little bit more sense. So the villanelle has only 2 rhyming sounds, and what that means is that only 2 words are rhymed throughout the entire poem. In this case, in the example I'll give you, the words are night and day. So those are the only sounds that are rhymed in the poem. Another interesting rule of the villanelle is that the first and third lines of the first stanza are alternating in the stanzas that follow the first. So the first line and the third line are alternated throughout the other stanzas as the third line. And I know that sounds really complex, and you'd have to, if it's not something you're familiar with, it's much easier to understand if you're looking at a poem. So if this is something that you're interested in, I do recommend you look this up, but I'll try and explain it as best I can. So, a villanelle is 19 lines long, it has six total stanzas. The first 5 are what's called a tercet, which is just 3 lines. That just means it's 3 lines. And the last stanza, the 6th stanza, is called a quatrain, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just 4 lines. It's a stanza of 4 lines. And so, I'll give you an example. And the example that I have is actually a very, very well-known poem by a very famous poet, who's actually one of my favorites. His name is Dylan Thomas. And the poem is called "Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night," which, even if you haven't read the poem, you've probably heard that line. It's a very famous line. So I'm going to read you just the first 3 stanzas or tercets of this poem, and then I'll point out the way that the poem follows the form of the villanelle. It goes, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though wise men at their end know dark is right, because their words had forked no lightning they, do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in the green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." And so those were the first 3 tercets, first 3 stanzas of that poem. And so if you remember, I told you that a villanelle has only 2 rhyme sounds, and which is what you heard. The sound that rhyme with night and with day. And also, you may have noticed that the first line and the third line reappeared a couple of times just in the first 3 stanzas. And you'll remember that how I told you that the first and third lines of that first stanza alternate as the last line of each successive stanza. So the line, "Do not go gentle into that good night," and the line, "Rage, rage against the dying of the light," those are alternated as the last line or the third line of each of the tercets throughout the rest of the poem. You heard them again at the end of the second stanza and also at the end of the third stanza that I read to you. And if you're interested in hearing the rest of this poem, if it's one that you're not familiar with, then I definitely recommend reading it, because it's a very beautiful piece of poetry, and it's one that everybody should at least be a little bit familiar with. And so now, if you were already familiar with that piece of poetry, now you can tell your friends exactly what kind of poem it is. Again, that's called the villanelle. And so we have gone over a few different kinds of poetry tonight. We talked about the sestina, which is 39 lines, and consists of 6 stanzas of 6 lines each, and finishes with a 3-line stanza known as the envoy. Then we learned about a little bit about the haiku, which is a Japanese form of poetry that's very short. And also we learned about the cinquain, which, or the American cinquain, which is very, very similar to the haiku, but instead of 3 lines, it's 5 lines. But it also deals with varying syllables. And then last we learned about the villanelle, which is 19 lines and only has 2 rhyming sounds, and the first and third line of the first stanza are alternated as the third line in each successive stanza of the poem. And the most famous, probably one of the most famous villanelles is Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. So, I hope that you have found this video very interesting and informative. And most of all, I hope that you have also found it very relaxing. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me talk about something that I find very interesting. And I hope that you have sweet dreams. I planned on donating it. Oh, there's a bug in here. Oh my god. Be free, little bug. Do you see him? He's crawling along. Please go away. Please get off of my box. Bye bye.